Hey guys, Subpar Lobster here. Today we're going to be talking about the Clive Barker movie Nightbreed from 1990. This is kind of the follow-up to his directorial debut with Hellraiser, and I'm super excited for this movie. It's kind of a monster flick with a little bit of a sense of humor, directed by one of my favorite horror writers, but I could not have been more disappointed. While the central character is interesting and the monster effects in the movie are awesome, the whole plot is essentially kind of just a waste of time. The first hour and a half doesn't really go anywhere, and it just feels like needless exposition. Sure, the last 30 minutes and the big monster brawl finale is really fun to watch and really cool, but it just is getting there as a complete chore. The kind of the central villain, you see him coming from a million miles away, and even though he's sporting a really awesome mask, it's kind of just he's kind of just irritating the entire time. Clive Barker is an exceptional writer and has directed some really great movies, but this is not one of them. If you're looking for another great Clive Barker movie that's not Hellraiser, I would check out something like Midnight Meat Train. But just with Nightbreed, I would not. Maybe YouTube the last 30 minutes and watch that awesome finale, but do not worry about sitting through that hour and a half of needless exposition. Alright guys, been Subpar Lobster. I'll see you later.
Nick Fleury here, guys. This week on the Punch Button, we decided to review Nightbreed. It came out in 1990, rather old, and a bit of a cult classic. It was directed by Clive Barker, written and directed by him, and based on a book he wrote called Cabal. Now, this movie, for better or worse, is everything you'd expect from a Clive Barker film. If you've seen Hellraiser or any of its sequels, it's pretty much a creature feature as those movies are. And it's a rather weird movie. Takes a while to get into, but after a while you start to like it, maybe not. And it stars David Cronenberg. If you've known him, he's directed such films as The Fly and Videodrome. First time seeing him act, he was amazing in the movie. It's probably my favorite part. But if you haven't seen it, check it out. And that's all I got to say about Nightbreed.
Hey guys, the Chief Ash here today to talk to you about another movie. So, a couple of us here at the Punch Button are going through Netflix or whatever, what have you, looking for an older horror movie just to kind of just check out, whatever. And we stumbled upon the director's cut of Nightbreed, which is a Clive Barker tale. It's an interesting movie. It kind of turns 80s slasher movies on this kind of turns them on their head. You know, usually you got, the monster, the bad guy going around just killing everybody and blah, 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 blah. And at the beginning, that's kind of what you have. You get a monster and he's killing people and you're like, oh, or what looks like a monster. And you're like, oh, okay. Typical slasher from this time period, whatever. But it turns out that monster is a human and there's actual monsters and the monsters are like the good guys, yeah, sort of. And the humans are the bad guys, but the way they play it out was really interesting. It's so at first the movie's kind of hard to swallow. I started watching it. I'm like, oh, this movie's gonna suck. First 10, 15 minutes into the movie, a lot of it the dialogue's a little iffy, and then there's this really uncomfortably long makeout scene with the main character and his girlfriend. And the thing about it is, it's not even like a makeout scene. It's like the most awkward kind of kissing makeout session thing, and it just looks weird. And you're watching it, and you're just like, okay, I don't know what to do about this. This is whatever. But you got to kind of power through it. But it's interesting. As the movie goes on, it progressively gets better, right? So at first you're not really with it or whatever, and as you keep going on, the plot actually it develops in such a way where it stops being like this weird, like crappy 80s slasher flick, and turns out to be like really like a pretty actually interesting movie. There's a lot of stuff in here that's it's interesting to see, but there's also a lot of stuff, like especially towards the beginning, where you're just like, this is stupid, like I don't even know. So it's definitely something to watch out for if you kind of want to see something a little conceptual. For me, a lot of movies that I absolutely love, I love based solely on the concept of what the movie is about and what it entails. A good example of that being A Nightmare on Elm Street. One of my favorite movies ever. I've got a million different little things akin to that, but anyway, the concept of the movie. So, like I said, typically in the 1980s, your 1980s, and this is 1990s, still kind of in that era. Your slasher flicks, the monster's bad, like just he's essentially some sort of embodiment of evil, how we conceive it in a different way, right? Like Jason Voorhees is the wrath of God, and Freddy Krueger's your embodiment of nightmares, and Michael Myers is the epitome of evil and stuff like that. They're all embodiments of negative things that we have. But in this movie, the monsters, essentially, in like the way I kind of see it, was just essentially they're like a set aside race that have like different, little different attributes that they can go on, but they just want to coexist for the most part. But the funny thing is, so like regular humans on an everyday basis, like we want to coexist, we want to be friends and stuff like that. But there are monsters among us. There are serial killers and stuff like that. And it's illustrated well in this movie with the monsters, because when you get into like a little more in depth of like who the monsters are and stuff like that, like there's monsters that legitimately just want to live their lives. Right? There's like this mother monster who's like a smoke monster, but she kind of has a human embodiment, and she's got a daughter, and all she wants to do is just have peace and stuff like that. But then two of the main monsters you see is like this his name's Narcissus, I think. Narcissus. Yeah. He cuts his face off or whatever, and like he's kind of crazy at first. You're just like, oh, okay, he's just nuts. But then he like essentially tries to rape the main character's girlfriend, but then plays it off like he was trying to help her, and he just gets away with that. But because of that little thing, it's just a little peek into the fact that even though we're painting these as the good guys, no good guys are actually good guys. They're essentially human, right? So that's pretty interesting to me. There's a huge look into that. There's a red like a character that's a red, and he's the guy that turns the main character into a monster and like bites him. But he like towards the beginning, he catches the main guy and he's like, I'm gonna eat you because I'm hungry and I want meat and blah blah blah. And the other monster's been like, no, you're gonna break the rules. And the first thing he literally says, fuck the rules, and he tries to kill him. So it's very with that it paints a human nature in these monsters. So it kind of puts you on a level with them, right? But it's the way it's painting that, there's still a little couple mess ups, but so ultimately, like, they're at the very very top of the movie. Like I said, a monster that isn't actually a monster. The David Cronenberg, the famous director, is acting in the movie, and like phenomenal performance. Like most of the acting in the movie overall is mediocre, but nothing's bad enough where you're like, I don't need to see this, but. There's nothing like Oscar worthy or anything, but Cronenberg, holy crap! Like actually, I've never seen him act before. He's got some pretty famous films out there. But I've always been a firm believer when you put a director on screen, often you get results because directors are frustrated actors, as one of my professors says all the time. But yeah, so if you put a director in front of the cameras, most of the time I feel like they're gonna produce. And in this movie, it's a shining example of that. He's by far the best actor in here, and for the NightBreed lore and fandom, it seems like he's the killer he plays in this is actually very well loved in the horror community. He's sometimes looked at as one of the greatest slashers, even though the movie didn't have as much praise as, let's say, Halloween or A Nightmare on Elm Street. But and he's got a really creepy costume and stuff like that, but at the very top of the movie you don't see who it is. You just see like the killer costume of his, and he murders an entire family, and it's like really, it's kind of sad. Like right at the beginning, I was very interested in the movie. It grabs you, like I said, it gets better as it goes on, but the very top of the movie is actually rather invigorating because you open up on this this family. It's a mother, a father, and then a little kid, little kid, right? And this was a taboo back in these days too, so that was a thing. There's a little kid, and then it shows the serial killer killing mom right in front of the kid, and then they kill the dad, and then it just shows him approaching the kid, and then it's implied that the kid was killed, and it was actually brought up that the whole family was murdered later on, but they never point out the actually they do, they call him a baby killer. Yeah, so it actually is pointed out. So yeah, it's, and you end up finding out that that's like that guy. He's a human, and he hates monsters. So he's also just trying to kill all monsters, and he's essentially just looking for chaos. He's just killing people, and he says he's cleaning up the genes so that we can get monsters out of here. So insinuating that the family at the beginning might have some monsterdom with them, but it's not 100% clear. Like I said, there's a couple bumpy points. There's some characters that probably shouldn't be there and stuff like that. But overall, it's definitely worth a check out. Like I said, the concept of it's really neat. It's just like, it's kind of like a little outlook on humanity and stuff like that. Maybe a little bit of a metaphor or symbolism towards racial relationships and stuff like that. But it's in that, I mean, it's pretty interesting. Clive Barker, I mean, he's written some, Hellraiser. He's in Candyman. He writes interesting stories, and he's got a pretty good. He's one of the masters of horrors. Most people consider him as one of those, and he definitely even though there's a couple, there's some rocky points, and every slasher movie has those rocky points, but in this, the rocky points in this, I mean, you can get over them, and as it goes on, they become less and less. The director's cut specifically, it seems like the original release cut was quite a bit different, and apparently the studio was really heavy-handed in it, made it actually look like a regular slasher movie, and then when he released the director's cut, apparently it kind of put more humanity into the monsters. But I mean, it's Clive Barker's vision. Clive Barker's a master of horror. They should have listened to him in the beginning, whatever, but it seems like most of the fandom of Nightbreed, they enjoyed the director's cut more, so there's that. So it's a testament to his skill. But like I said, there's some rocky stuff, but it's definitely worth the watch. It's not super long, and there's some story in there, and a lot of symbolism. It'll get your art thoughts flowing, right? At the beginning, you might not. Me and Nick Fleury watched it together, and we weren't really into it at the beginning, and then towards the end of it, we started debating on what was going on in the movie. Like, I wrote down what I thought was going to happen in the plot, and I was so right, but all the stuff that happened in the plot, I didn't like that. Like, it was revealed maybe 30 minutes in the movie what the whole plot was, but then it was like what happened because of it was like crazy, and I didn't see that coming. It wasn't necessarily a twist, but it was like the plot development was so much more than I expected, and that's because it was a well-rounded plot. But the story is interesting. I'm not 100% if I want to call it just a straight-up great movie, but it's interesting. It's definitely worth the watch, and it can make your ticker start going, and you may find something cool about it. So yeah. Anyway, this has been the Chief Ash on Nightbreed, the director's cut, and keep watching.
Hey, what's up? This is Nick Fleury here, reminding you to subscribe. And if you have any suggestions as to what we do next, or you want to tell us how we did, drop a comment down below. And if you want to see more, hit that like button.